Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. My name is Tom Byrne. I am the RTM moderator. Congratulations on your election to the RTM. Tonight, I really want to accomplish three things for you. I want to position the RTM in the system of Greenwich government, tell you how the RTM is organized to fulfill the role it plays in town government, and I want to let you know really what you should be doing in advance of the organizational meeting that will take place in December next month. So those are really the three things. We have, I'd like to thank the district and committee chairs who are here tonight to serve as an additional resource. Let's point them out. I see Mike Warner, who is chair of our finance committee. Mike, you want to just stand up? All right. We have Doug Wells, who is chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee. Despina Fasiliotis, who is chair of District 11. Let's see. We have Peter Berg, chair of our Land Use Committee. Val Stouffer, chair of District 7. Josh Brown, who is chair of our Education Committee. Did you happen to make the the Board of Education meeting tonight?
I did not, but we do have insight into what happened.
Yes, there are some rumors floating around. Did I miss anyone? Any other chairs? I think that's it. We got Mike first. Irf? Yeah, come on. All right. So I welcome any questions or comments as I go through. Please feel free to interrupt me. And again, I had visions of, with this weather, of speaking to an empty room. So it really warms my heart that you all came out tonight. I also want to thank Don Conway of District 2, who is one of the directors of our local government TV channel. Don is actually recording this meeting. He's in the control room right now, and I thank him for that. I didn't want to get advance word out that was happening, or else there'd be no reason for you to come. But all right, so why don't we get going? If you don't mind, I'm going to sit. All right, I did put an agenda in the back, and I ask that you just print your name so we know who was here. And let's get started with the structure of Greenwich Town government. And I copied a page from the RTM rules appendix after the agenda, which is an organization chart. And I think that's a good depiction of where the RTM is. I've always described our government as decentralized. We think of the first selectman as a mayor, and yet there are many departments that are not under the, do not report to the first selectman, are not under the control of the first selectman. Most of the operational departments, however, public safety, public works, parks and rec, are under the first selectman director. But we have these independent boards: Board of Social Services, Board of Health, Nathaniel Witherell, the land use boards, the finances of the town are under the Board of Estimate and Taxation. So rather spread out. And of course, we have the schools, which are responsible for a very large portion of our town budget. And they are independent. That's really a state function, education. But the RTM has the final appropriation authority. Any expenditures in town must be approved at the final stage by the RTM. I view that as really our most important responsibility. But with respect to all these other volunteer boards that are not elected positions, they are appointed. It is the RTM that makes the final appointment. The nominations come from the Board of Selectmen. So those, I think, are right up at the top, the two most important responsibilities that we have, and I will go through those, and how we are organized to carry out those responsibilities. The RTM itself, RTM stands for Representative Town Meeting. Town of Greenwich historically had the old New England form of government, the town meeting, where all citizens were members, essentially, and would gather when important decisions had to be approved. And as the town grew, as the story goes, when there were controversial matters, the hall that they would meet in had a limited capacity, and if there was a real division of opinion on an issue, supporters on one side would arrive early, pack the hall, and prevent the other side from being heard. And it became apparent, I don't know if that's true, I've not independently verified, but that is the story. But the town was growing, and they did realize they had to have some kind of representative form of government. And rather than go the way of what we know in urban areas with a small town council, they tried to stay true to this representative form, this town meeting form of government. And so it was in 1933 that the RTM was organized. And if you read the minutes of the RTM, at the time, they gave much of the credit to Oscar Tuthill, who was the then first selectman, who they say really pushed for this form of government. And Oscar Tuthill, we think of the modern times when we're now, we have a first selectman who's in his 5th term, and you'll read that's the record. Oscar Tuthill was first selectman from 1921 until when he died in 1936. Now, it was a different position. It was not a full-time position as it is today, but there have been longer than 10-year terms for first selectmen, and Oscar Tuthill was, as I said, sort of the father of the RTM. And the RTM started out with a smaller number. Despina, do you remember? Was that 144 or so? All right, it was in the range of 150, I think a little less than 150. And as the town population grew, the RTM would grow according to a ratio of representatives to electors. It's always been electors, by the way, not population, until our present size of 230, and then it was capped at that number. And so, that is where we are today. So let's go through some of the powers that we have. I'm glad that Mike Warner is here. Our finance committee is our leading committee on expenditures. Any appropriation over $25,000 that will come to us during the year is referred to our finance committee. We hold our annual budget meeting in May. That meeting is dedicated just to the budget for the coming year. And much of what we do is designed to prepare ourselves for that meeting. We're now close to $500 million in expenditures. And it's a big responsibility. We have to do our homework, and yeah, I got an email. Well, it had been going out directly to our member. Despina mentioned that she has been receiving emails from me. I'm forwarding information on the BET meeting. Now, maybe I should back up. I mentioned the BET briefly. The way the budget process works, the departments put their budgets together. I guess you could say they start immediately after our May budget meeting, but the real work begins over the summer and in the early fall. The schools, I understand, have been presented with the superintendent's recommended budget. Is that right? Josh, but they have not voted on that, the board. So each area of town is currently working on putting together their budget for the next fiscal year, which begins July 1st of 2016. We amended the charter a few years back so that all budgets do pass through the first selectman. But the first selectman doesn't put all of those budgets together. As you see in that list, that organizational chart, first selectman is responsible for the budgets of the departments under the first selectman, but the Board of Health will put together its own budget, et cetera. Those eventually are submitted to the BET, and the BET has a 4-member, BET is 12 members, currently 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats, and they have a 4-member budget committee, which does much of the nitty-gritty work in reviewing these proposed budgets from the various departments. The budget committee makes a recommendation to the BET, and the BET has the ability to increase budget requests. They can essentially do whatever they want. That is a real financial power in town. They're not the final approval authority, but you know, I would think it's accurate to say they have much greater authority than the RTM does. And the BET will take up, they'll make their final decisions in, I believe it's March. They hold a public hearing, and after the public hearing, they'll make their final decision in what is called a recommended budget for the next fiscal year. That, no, yes, I welcome it. Go ahead. There is a microphone. Steve? Is Steve Warzoa here? Because he was given the microphones. All right. No, there it is. No, but we're recording it. There you go, right there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. One of the criticisms that my district had, you know, was that we, the budget committee received requests for money and they passed it, but it was posted. There's no question about it. But a lot of the members, and the new members in particular, don't realize that these are being posted. So, but with your new method now of sending out the packages, it meets the criticism that District 11 had, that we didn't know what was going on with the BET as far as the budget went until it was too late. So I hope you continue doing that.
All right. Well, those packets of information had been going out in the past, and there certainly was a large distribution list. I was always getting them, but it looked like everyone else was getting them, and apparently the list was not complete. And so the BET decided to ask me to make sure it got to all of our district and committee chairs. So, you know, that's of recent vintage, and I have been doing that. But everyone should know that state law requires that all meetings of any of these boards and commissions are public, must be noticed, and so all of this is available. All of the information that you are now getting is available, and you can submit your name to a particular board and ask to be sent their material directly, and they're required by law to do that. So I'm surprised that, you know, our members weren't aware of that. That's sort of a bedrock of the way government in Connecticut operates, and certainly here in Connecticut. And with websites, you know, everything is transparent now. But I will continue to do that, you know, and we'll just have to make sure.
Push a button and it goes out.
Right.
But before I would have had to record it and so forth and so on. Or
you know, but you make a good point. We have in the past had individual members who were very diligent about monitoring the work of the BET. As I said, it's a very powerful board, and we had members who would monitor it and report back, because sometimes, you know, the documents don't tell the whole story, and being there in person is a good thing. Michael Warner.
Tom, you know that the BET spends hours holding meetings with department heads, grilling line by line each budget item, and that's seldom reflected. It can't be reflected
No.
in any document, really.
Right.
But it's invaluable information. The BET takes days off of their time, whatever work they do.
The Budget Committee.
The Budget Committee.
Right.
And listening to those meetings in person, it's invaluable to listen to the back and forth of the rationale why departments are spending dollars in any particular area. I've asked Mike Mason.
Now, I think there, and I'm not certain about this, but there are official Budget Committee meetings where they have representatives of departments, and those are probably recorded and aired on Channel 79. But there may be other work that takes place where they visit the department outside of an official meeting. So
I don't think that's correct.
Okay.
I understand from members of the Finance Committee, they would love to have the time to sit in on these roundtable in the town hall meeting room, budget reviews of every department, and they don't have the time to do that. I've asked Mike Mason if it was possible to record these meetings, and he said no. While they could get the video, the recording of individuals asking from different parts of the floor a department. I just didn't know if I had your attention or not.
well, I'm just looking. Channel 79 GCTV has a list
Right.
of all the meetings. I was just looking at it. I'm listening to you, Mike.
But Michael told me that they don't record it.
All right,
Take my word for that.
okay.
They
They
don't-
do record the budget meetings because I'm looking at them right here.
Well, he tells me that the back and forth they have with department heads in the town hall meeting room is not recorded. They tried to record it several years ago and were unsuccessful because of the audio. And I've asked him if he would take steps to try and get the audio worked out. And to the extent that you have any influence in that, I would ask you to. It's an invaluable resource to have, to be able to look at the question and answer and back and forth of
All
what's
right.
happening and what's being spent. That's my
Okay.
comment.
There was a comment in the back.
Hi, I'm brand new to this, and I would like to know why. I would like to know why I'm here, because this feels like nonsense and a lot of. I don't even know what's going on. I was told this would be a meeting that we would learn about what we were going to do, and
Okay. Well, what
I've
we're
not learned
doing.
a thing.
Okay.
And I would like, an introduction of people who are in charge of this and
Ma'am,
what our
did you
expectations
just walk
are.
in? Because we introduced ourselves
Well,
at 8 o'clock. All right. Was there, Roz?
Yeah, I just want to request one favor, and that is, I think I'm the one that started the budget packs going around because I was suddenly dumped from the list.
Okay.
But I got mine very late. I got it like 4. I like to go to the BET budget meetings, and I didn't get it till 4 in the afternoon from one district, which is no longer my own, and didn't get it at all from my own. So could you please request that the district people send them out to their people?
I will do that. If you have such an interest, contact the BET directly. They will put you on the list and send it to you. All right. Well, I will. That is just a question of an email. I mean, we're talking about electrons, so that should not be a problem. And ma'am, I didn't mean to cut you off, but where I started was the most important work I believe the RTM has is to review the expenditures in the town, and that is what we are talking about. That is where most of the work gets done in this board called the Board of Estimate and Taxation and their important budget committee. And so we're talking about how we can access the resources of that group. All right, so the BET gets the recommendation from its budget committee. It makes a final recommended budget to the RTM in March, and that comes to us, and we act on it in May. So as I said, I think that, at least in my view, that is the most important responsibility that we have, and much of what we do is designed to prepare ourselves to cast informed votes at that May meeting. And we are working, as I said, the budget work begins much earlier. Our committees are set up to get information distributed to the 230 members, and I will talk shortly about how that is done. But that is the financial responsibility that we have. By the way, when the budget comes to us in May, we are limited to approving what has been recommended to us by the BET or reducing the line item amounts. If we think the schools should get more money, for example, we don't have the authority to do that. We can only approve as is or cut, reduce, or delete entirely with some limitations. We have to provide an education, a public education, but the level then, is some up for some discretion. Yes.
Going back to 1933 or whenever, has that always been the aegis, if that's the right word, of the RTM? They could only cut or approve? Does that go back
Yes.
to 33?
Yes, it does. All right. I said we have the power of appointment. There are, I can give you the exact number. This is from the chair of our appointments committee. The RTM appoints for 13 boards and commissions. And those nominations, as I said, come from the Board of Selectmen. Those are the Alarm Appeals Board, Commission on Aging, Board of Ethics, Harbor Management Commission, Historic District Commission, Board of Health, Inland Wetlands and Watercourses, that's one word, agency, Nathaniel Witherell, Parks and Recreation, Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Social Services, and any building committees, which could include school building committees and Nathaniel Witherell Building Committee. We also, the RTM also has both the nominating and appointment power for four more bodies, two outside of the RTM, two within the RTM. The Flood and Erosion Control Board, we both nominate and appoint, and the Condemnation Commission. And I'll talk about the special committees that our appointments committee nominates and the RTM appoints when we get to our committee structure. So you can see, that is an extremely important authority, responsibility that the RTM has. That is the operation of all of town government. We are the legislative body of the town, so we enact ordinances with some exceptions. No traffic and parking, that's all within the Board of Selectmen purview. No land use regulations, that's Planning and Zoning Commission. But otherwise, we are the ordinance authority. A lot of times we are reactive in that we wait for a proposed ordinance to come to us from some other source, but we can act on our own. If a member thinks something needs to be changed, and that could be deleted, could be adopted new, it could be amended, we can do that ourselves. We don't need to have that brought to us by anyone. We approve all land transactions, sale, lease of property, purchase of property. You may be reading about the New Lebanon school issues and where they are going to, what portion of town land they're going to use for the planned new building. There's something called a municipal improvement that needs to be obtained in order to use public land for some purpose. And ultimately, that decision could come to the RTM on an appeal. In the first instance, it goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it can be appealed to the RTM. And then there's this final category called sense of the meeting resolutions. Those are, that is a method for the RTM to express its opinion on some important issue. It has no legally binding authority. And my recommendation has always been that we use that power sparingly. If we are not careful, and start passing things left and right, people are just going to tune us out. We want them to listen to us. We want these sense of the meeting resolutions to, in effect, have binding authority. If we say this is the way it should be, we'd like that to be respected. And you don't want to abuse that authority by going off on all sorts of issues. And, so I think that's something, as an organization, we need to think carefully about before we start proposing and adopting these sense of the meeting resolutions. Irf?
Just on land transactions, just a second.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Steve.
The responsibility for establishing a project, taking New Leb as a specific example, and approving a site, all incorporated into the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen to then, once that's done, say, hey, you will have the approval to go forward with a municipal improvement. Having said that, there's been some feedback of late that the controversy relative to the site for New Leb may be the first occasion in recent history where a building committee has said, thank you very much, but we don't like your recommendation. Could you comment on that?
No, I'm not going to comment on that, Irf. We're going to need the law department, I think, to weigh in on what authority they have. My understanding was a particular plan had been approved under municipal improvement, and what's being proposed is outside of that. But I've also seen statements that they perhaps are not bound. So I don't want to get into that now. But just in general, that is an issue that the RTM could become involved in, and then we would have to educate ourselves. And and we have
Question in the back.
We do have the law department as a resource. They're always at our meetings, and they advise us on legal issues. And in addition to our well-staffed Legislative and Rules Committee, which you wouldn't believe the legal brain power currently on that group. Yes, in the back.
What is the procedure to have to get a municipal improvement? And if you do get one, is it possible to get it amended or changed?
Well, it goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission in the first instance, and as I said, we just deal with the appeals from that. So I know Peter Berg could answer that question, but I'm not going to call upon him to do that because this is a new member orientation, and I said I'd keep you for an hour. So I don't, I apologize. I just don't. Peter Berg is right here. He'd be happy to answer that question for you. All right. Dean.
Anyhow, I'll talk loudly.
We have another one, Dean.
Oh, thank you. When it
All right.
comes to ordinances, you said that they may come from elsewhere. In terms of, there's been a lot in the news lately about the preserving of an old structure on the Post Road, and I was wondering if the town wanted to tighten some of its preservation ordinances about what can be torn down and things related to that. Would that come from us or from someplace else?
Well, as I said, we do not get involved in land use regulations. So where that line is drawn, there is a demolition ordinance which requires just notice. You can't prevent the demolition, but we are not authorized to enact any land use regulations.
And that applies to buildings as well? Or is that an issue that...
It depends what we're talking about.
Okay.
It is possible that it is not within our purview. I'll just leave it at that. We'd have to see what the proposal is and get an opinion on it.
Thank you.
All right. Now, how do we go about preparing ourselves to exercise these responsibilities? The RTM structure is really a three-part structure. We are divided into committees which review matters that are going to be voted on by the full RTM. We have 11 standing committees. And for new members, this is important. I assume you had some interest. It could just be a general interest, but you may have a particular interest. And you may want to really consider campaigning to get on a committee in the area of your interest. So the 11 standing committees, and when I say standing, what that means is those are committees that are staffed by one voting delegate from each of our 12 districts. And the districts will then also appoint a non-voting alternate who can fill in and vote if the delegate is not at the meeting. And when I first joined, that was important to me. I wanted a committee assignment, and I had to work for it, and you will too if you want one, because I think it's fair to say that incumbents might have an advantage unless you can show why you are the better candidate. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this may be irrelevant based on what you just said, but just to be explicit, are these committees have a maximum membership?
Oh, all right. Well, that's a good point. There is a maximum membership for voting delegates. Each district gets a vote on these standing committees. But if you're not on a committee, that doesn't mean you can't go. These are all public meetings. I think all of our committee chairs, I'll tell you my philosophy is, as I present it to our committee and district chairs, to encourage discussion. The whole idea here is not to be surprised at the full RTM meeting when we are going to vote on something. We don't want to hear something at that full RTM meeting for the first time. And if you have an interest, even if you're not a delegate, you should go to those committee meetings and seek to participate. It's going to be up to the chair running the meeting as to, just how much time is available for any particular issue and how much time any one person can be given. But all these meetings are open to those who are not official members of the committee. But the membership is 12 voting members, one from each district. Yes? Sure.
Could you specifically describe the responsibilities and authority of the education subcommittee?
All right, that's a standing committee. Let me read them all, and then, why don't, if the chairs would like to give a brief description, you'd get it from the horse's mouth. We do have the education chair here. So we have the appointments committee. They interview everybody who we will appoint. The education committee, will interview anyone on a board that falls within their purview. Health and Human Services would interview those for the Board of Health and the Board of Social Services, but appointments, everybody. It's a big, there are 130 positions that we appoint, a minimum. There may be additional ones. Education, finance, Health and Human Services, land use, legislative and rules, parks and recreation, public works, town services. Town services is fire, police, public safety, and some administrative things within town hall. Transportation committee, and what we call the budget overview committee, which is a standing committee, but it's a little different than the ones that I just mentioned. Josh Brown, who's chair of our education committee, do you care to just give a brief description?
The information that each of the committees reviews is included in the appendix in the instructions for the RTM. The Education Committee takes up any items referred to it, generally appropriations, grant requests. We have informational discussions with the school leadership to understand kind of topics of the day, what they're doing, dig into what's coming, be it the new Lebanon school. We did it for the digital learning program to understand exactly how that was supposed to come forward. So they're standard items, and then we create subcommittees for other, we'll call them projects or special studies as we need to. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right. Josh referred to the RTM rules, which, if you look at my bullet point number 5, there are links to both the town charter, code of ordinances. That's in the first link, which appears on the top of the second page. And the RTM rules is that second link. And in the appendix, there is this summary of the responsibilities of each of the standing committees. All right, so that is available to you now. Yes, sir.
Packet starts with Appendix E. Is A through D somewhere else?
Yeah, no, I was not printing out the rules for you, but because I wanted to talk about the structure of town government, that was something I thought would be helpful for you. So yes, there and the appendix, understand that we have our rules, which are mandatory. There are mandatory provisions, and then the appendix follows, which is really informational and advisory. Doesn't have the force of a rule. What you see in there. It's really suggestive and informational. Roz?
Just a quick backup to the committees. We have alternates too, and maybe you should explain that to the people.
Well, I am going to get
Oh,
to
you'll
that,
get
but
there. Okay,
that's when we get to the districts and how we're going to put our committees together. All right, so those are our standing committees, with the exception of budget overview. Their meeting schedule is to meet when an item that is coming before the RTM is referred to the committee. That referral is done by the moderator. The philosophy there is we want really one or two committees to take the lead on reviewing an item, even if an item might fall under the jurisdictional description of other committees. Problem we faced in our past was we would have multiple committees reviewing an item, and we found that when everybody reviewed it, nobody really reviewed it. And so, there are proponents and opponents on all items. It's good to get them all in the same room. So because many of our committees are meeting on the Monday night, the week before the full RTM meeting in different rooms, if we have 3 different committees reviewing an item, then we start to split up the information. And so the idea is try and concentrate the review in 1 or 2 main committees. And as I said, the moderator makes those referrals, but any committee can decide to take something up if it is not referred to them. So if we have a call item and our agenda is referred to as the call, so when you hear the term RTM call, that really is just another word for the agenda of our meeting. If an item on that agenda is referred to, say, the Education Committee, that will be, the Education Committee will meet the Monday prior to the full RTM meeting. And we split those committee meetings up between the Monday and Tuesday in the week prior to the RTM. Education and Finance meet on Monday night. Land Use meets on Monday night. Legislative and Rules also. Public Works. They all meet on Monday night. On Tuesday night, Health and Human Services meets. Parks and Recreation. Town Services. And I believe Transportation. I'm not sure. Not sure what night Transportation meets. Tuesday, okay. The Appointments Committee meets on its own schedule because they have so much work to do. They try and schedule interviews well in advance of the items coming before the RTM. They sort of act as an alert if there's a problem with a proposed nominee before it's actually brought before the RTM and put on our agenda. They can alert the selectmen that they think there might be an issue. So their schedule of meetings is based on their workload. not our RTM schedule. And the Budget Overview Committee is tasked with a broader responsibility. They are asked to look at what they think are important financial issues facing the town. They are not referred agenda items, so they're working on their own schedule. I think in its current form, they meet on a Thursday night in advance of the week prior to the RTM meeting. So those are our standing committees. Any questions anyone has on those? Then we have two special committees, labor contracts, which special because it is not formed from one representative from each district. There are only 5 voting members on the Labor Contracts Committee and 2 alternates. And our Appointments Committee makes those nominations, and the full RTM makes the appointment. They review proposed collective bargaining agreements. State of Connecticut has a rather rigid system where the parties, the town, and the collective bargaining unit will negotiate. Sometimes they'll reach an agreement. Under state law, the legislative body, us, we have the authority to reject that agreement. It has to be within 30 days of it being filed with the town clerk. So sometimes we are forced to have a special meeting to exercise our authority within that time frame. Usually, if it's a negotiated agreement, they'll cooperate and withhold filing it until it'll come within one of our regular scheduled meetings. But our labor contracts is the lead committee on reviewing those collective bargaining settlements, negotiations. And if the parties can't agree, then there would be mediation and then arbitration. And again, if there's an arbitration award, the legislative body has the authority to reject that one time. If it does that, it goes back for a final arbitration that then becomes binding on the town. Now, all of those committees that I have described are advisory to the full RTM. They have no independent authority to act on behalf of the RTM. The next special committee is unique among our committees. It is the Claims Committee. This committee consists of 9 RTM members, and by rule, the moderator is the chair. So there are 10 members. The RTM appoints 9, but of course the RTM elects the moderator, so the RTM really is appointing all 10. And again, those nominations come from our Appointments Committee. And you'll see if you read the rules, when I say our Appointments Committee makes a nomination, there are provisions for nominations from the floor to be made. So it's not an exclusive authority to nominate given to our Appointments Committee. But in practice, that's where the nominating responsibility lies. And the Claims Committee reviews proposed settlements of claims against the town. And because of the sensitive nature of the information that goes into those decisions, you're being advised by the town attorney, so you have attorney-client privilege. Not conducive for 230 members in front of a television camera. And so that the RTM in the charter delegated its authority to settle claims against the town to this 10-member committee. There is also a provision, sometimes a claim is not settled, it goes to trial, and then because of developments during the trial, the town may want to convene the committee on an emergency basis, and there is a provision for an emergency subcommittee of this 10-member claim committee to act. And that, now, by rule, the Claims Committee can only approve a settlement by 6 affirmative votes, 6 or more affirmative votes. So if there's only 7 people who show up to the meeting, 6 of those 7 would have to vote yes to approve. So it's a committee extremely important. The work, there's some real hard claims that come before the Claims Committee. And, you know, I'm very proud of the work that the Claims Committee has done over the years. And, you know, let's just hope things continue. I think it has done a very good job. And because we are already taking the authority of 230 and giving it to 10 people, as moderator and as chair of this committee, I have not convened. I've told our town attorney that I do not want to be in a position where we have to use this emergency subcommittee, where you now have only 3 people who have the authority, and only 2 of them need to vote to approve. So, you know, we have not exercised that provision in memory. You know, I know I've been chair of that committee for 20 years, and there may have been 1 or 2 times early in my tenure, but not in the last 15 years. You know, for those reasons, I think we want to have at least 10 people. And we recently amended our rules to add 2 alternates to the Claims Committee to ensure that we have maximum attendance. You know, the people on that committee are busy. They're you know, extremely powerful legal minds and active people. And there were times, you know, they're in London on their own private work. So we have taken care of that, and I think you know, our attendance is at the full 10 members for all recent. You know, that was just this past term that we added the 2 alternates. And then there is an ability to form ad hoc committees. I think the most recent that would fall within that is a committee that reviewed an open space plan that was brought to us. And usually these ad hoc committees are formed when multiple committees have an interest in an item, but it's a large issue, requires different talents, and one committee doesn't want to take the burden, and so they cooperate. And I think the Open Space Committee, Peter Berg, you were chair of that, is that correct? And you drew from which other committees?
So we had education.
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry, we had representatives from the Education Committee, the Public Works Committee, and there's a third one. Whoops, you know. So, right, I just have to think.
Well, land use.
Land use and Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So there were 4 committees represented.
All right. And, you know, so as the need arises, these committees can be formed. They can be formed by cooperation among our standing committees. The moderator can appoint special committees under our rules. I have the 2 major committees that I appointed. One was over 10 years ago when Nathaniel Witherell, you know, the future of Nathaniel Witherell was in question. And while I appointed it, it really was one of these cooperative efforts among our various committees, where they essentially came to me and said, these are the members who we would like to work on this issue. And, you know, so I, in essence, just put my stamp of approval on that. And then from time to time, we look at our organization. We had a special committee on rules right before I became moderator, where we combined some committees, we eliminated some committees, we looked at our structure, and 10 years later, I put together another special committee to do that, you know, and that was a moderator special committee. So the moderator has the ability to appoint special, you know, which I would call an ad hoc committee. So that is our committee structure, and the idea here is to fully research, fully vet whatever is coming before us, with the goal of having us cast informed votes. And I will tell you, when I first joined, I got on the Education Committee. I did no homework. I went to the first meeting in January, and I'll talk about, you know, what you face, you know, with how the committees will organize themselves after we talk about the district organizing. And, you know, a lot of us were new members. We didn't talk to each other in advance, and just sort of by acclamation, the old chairman was reelected. And quite to my surprise, now this was education, which is a major portion of the budget. Quite to my surprise, the philosophy of that particular individual was to try and get us home as soon as possible to watch Monday Night Football. You know, so that's not the idea. That's not the purpose of our committees. And I tell our committee and district chairs that their meetings should encourage discussion, should encourage alternate opposing views. And if you read our rules, the responsibility of a chair is to seek out all interested perspectives. We know there's at least two sides to every story, and usually more. And a good chairman is making sure that all of those views are represented. And then in the conduct of the meeting, you know, within reason, you want everyone to feel that they have the right to be heard. As I said, you know, there are limitations on very controversial items. You know, you're going to have to sometimes limit the time that anyone has to speak. But that's the goal of our committees. And so I tell our committees and districts that their meetings should go long so that the full RTM meeting doesn't have to. As I said, the worst thing is for us to hear someone come up when we're being asked to vote that night, and some statement, some claim is made for the first time, and it's very hard now to verify the accuracy. You know, you may not have the resources, the people who are involved. Most, you know, if an item is being presented by a town department, that department is usually there, but the work, the nitty-gritty work has to go on in these committees, and the reason we have one member from every district on the committees is so that they go back and report to their districts. The districts will meet, as I said, the committees meet on the Monday and Tuesday prior to the full RTM meeting. The districts meet on the Wednesday or Thursday prior to the full RTM meeting. And so that is how the information is designed to be disseminated, with now the ability to have reports placed on the RTM website. And our committees are doing a wonderful job of putting together reports summarizing the work they did, the votes they took, the reasons for and against. So we have those written reports now in advance of district meetings. Then we have our district meetings where our committee representatives will give us reports. And usually there is more than one committee, so you know you're getting different perspectives. And the idea is, by the end of your district meeting, you know, you should pretty well have an idea how you're going to vote on Monday night. I will tell you by tradition, because we are so large, 230 members, one vote really doesn't mean anything. And when I became moderator, I took the position knowing that the tradition was the moderator would not vote unless that one vote would swing the balance. And so for 20 years, I've really not voted on anything. And so my memory's a little hazy, but my memory is, I just said you should know going into the meeting how you're going to vote. My memory is that's not always how I felt. You know, and I would sit in the RTM meeting listening to speakers and say, oh, well, maybe that sounds right. That really shouldn't be happening. You know, hopefully all the information has been disseminated prior to that meeting. We then will have full debate the night of the meeting, and maybe someone is articulate and then changes your view. That's fine. That's a healthy process. But there shouldn't be surprises. There shouldn't be statements being made that we say, what? I've never heard of that before. You know, is that true? Because it's very hard in a meeting as large as our full meeting to now dig down and see if those are accurate statements. So that's how we organize ourselves. The districts are going to organize for the new term on December 9th for districts 2, 4, 8, and 11. Those are the 4 districts that meet on a Wednesday night. Our December meeting, which you are all invited to, and which you will receive a copy of the meeting documents, so that what's going to happen, our full RTM meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 14th. So the district meetings will be Wednesday the 9th for those 4 districts, 2, 4, 8, and 11, and Thursday the 10th for everyone else. And what will happen is there'll be 2 district meetings. The regular district meeting will take place first, where whatever is before us in December will be discussed. When that is finished, that meeting will adjourn, and an organizational meeting will then be convened. If there are members from a district who did not stand for re-election and are retiring, they will then, they can stay if they like, but they will not participate in this second organizational meeting. And at that meeting, the newly elected members of the district will elect district officers, chairman, vice chair, and secretary, and will then elect, or by consensus, determine who the delegate, the voting delegate, and alternate will be for each of the standing committees, the 11 standing committees. So, Despina, how many members does your district have? 24. So we have 11 standing committee positions. Most of our districts are larger than that. So there is not a voting delegate position for every member of a district. If you want that authority to be a voting member of a district, now remember, of a committee, I'm sorry, the committees are advisory only, but and their votes can be taken or rejected by the full RTM. But I think if you're going to be doing the work, you probably want to be a voting member. So if you are interested in that, understand that the positions are limited by the number of committees that we have and the size of your particular district. But those positions will be filled at the organizational meeting on the 9th or 10th of December. I have sent out an email to our district chairs summarizing what our rules provide as the procedure for those meetings. I have encouraged them to canvass all of their members in advance as to what committee interests they have, and to disseminate that to their members in advance, so that you hopefully will know, if you want to be on education and there's 1 or 2 other people, you now have some work to do. If you want to do it, you got to convince your fellow district members that you're the person for the job. And I encourage you to do that. I have, Despina Vasiliotis is sort of the historian of the RTM, and we celebrated our 75th anniversary in 2008, and one of the things I did in advance of that was go through the entire list of individuals who had served on the RTM since 1933, and at the time it was 2,461 members. And the turnover each year surprised me. It averaged 75 new members. Now, we see there are a lot of members here. That has been cut down a little bit recently. But the other statistic that stands out, while the average tenure, now this is as of 2008, was just shy of 7 years, 6.7 years. That's somewhat skewed by the long-serving members. The median tenure, half above and half below, was 4 years. So my message has always been to the new members, you may only be here for 4 years. There's no reason for you, to sit back and defer to others. If you have an interest and you think you have a skill, you should go for what you want. There's no telling what your tenure will be, and you have as much right as our incumbent members to seek out these positions on committees. Understand that, that your district members are probably going to defer to those with experience. And, there's logic in doing that. But we actually have had a brand new member be elected a chairman of one of our committees. the Transportation Committee many years ago. That has not happened recently, but there's nothing that prevents it. So the message to you is go for what you want. You know, if you have an interest, you have the time, and understand, if you take these positions, you will be expected to be putting in whatever time is necessary. It's not a lot. We only meet 8 times a year on a regular basis. And the committees, you know, will meet so if you have a committee meeting, a district meeting, and an RTM meeting, that's only 24 meetings in a year. We can have special meetings if something comes up over the summer, like a labor contract, or we have met over the summer. Sometimes there isn't business for us and we'll cancel a meeting. But the time commitment for the RTM, of all the town boards or commissions, organizations to get involved with, I think this is the least in terms of time commitment, although it can be as much as you want it to be. When I got on the Education Committee, I went to the Board of Education meetings. I went to some BET meetings. So there's a lot out there for you to do. And if you take a delegate position on a committee, you should be going to all those meetings. If you have a schedule where you think you're going to be absent, then maybe it's better to take an alternate position. And, you know, that's just my view. So that's what's going to happen in December. Any questions on what that process will be as the districts organize? Okay, it's pretty clear. The committees then, so in December, the districts will have named the members of the committees. The committees then, all the committees will meet in January. Our January meeting, by the way, is the only non-Monday meeting because of Martin Luther King Day. We will meet on January 19th, which is a Tuesday, the third, I believe it's the third Tuesday. At that meeting, we will elect a moderator and a moderator pro tem. And I was negligent in not mentioning Joan Caldwell is the current moderator pro tem. She has been the moderator pro tem for 20 years. And she wanted to be with us tonight, but there were some health issues, and with the weather, she decided to stay home. But she sends her best. She did work with me on this, and made arrangements for the meeting, and so very active. And I rely on Joan very much. And I'm sorry she couldn't be here. But the RTM will elect a moderator and a moderator pro tem at that January meeting. Incidentally, I have been arguing for years, or advocating for years, that we should amend our rules for that moderator and moderator pro tem election to require advance notice be given to the membership of anyone who is interested in those positions. After all, how do we make appointments to all other boards and commissions? We get their resumes, we interview them on multiple committees, and then we vote. The way our rules are set up, you'll come in that night, January 19th, and you may not know who's about to be nominated to be moderator or moderator pro tem. So in years past, we have adopted a rule around this time to take care of that, but I don't see that happening this year. So I throw that out because I think it is good process. As I said, I believe my job as moderator is to make sure we cast informed votes. That means that we have advanced knowledge, information on what we're going to vote on and who we're going to be voting for. So I throw that out to our Legislative and Rules Committee chair. That that's something we actually talked about that at the last Moderators Committee meeting. I convene. It's an informal group, but I convene the chairs of the district and the committees at least once a year, usually in February, between our January and March meetings, to discuss various issues that I want to make sure our chairs are aware of, how the meetings are to be conducted, procedural things, and then, whatever they have on their mind. And we did talk about that at our last Moderators Committee. Doug, I know you weren't there, but the consensus was we do want this to happen. So it's hopefully we'll move towards that. So the committees will meet, all committees will meet, whether they have items before them from the January meeting or not, solely to elect officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. And again, I encourage everyone to, if you get on a committee, to do some legwork in advance to find out, talk to your fellow district members. How is the leadership of the committee currently perceived? Is there a change necessary? But do some legwork. Don't do what I did my first time going to a meeting. And so that's how we will organize for the next 2 years. All of the documents that govern us, the charter, the town code, and our rules are online. And those, just go to the town website, go to the RTM. There actually are 2 RTM websites, and I list those under number 7, greenwichct.org. And then there's this one, rtm.greenwich.org. All of our documents are online. And all of our documents, we were the first. The beauty of having 230 members is the skill set is varied and very high. And we had people back in 1996 who were tech savvy and who led the town online. The first town website was the RTM website. It was actually hosted on a private server by Fred DeCaro, who's our current registrar of voters. And then it was taken over. Then the state got involved, trying to encourage towns to go online, and we moved it to the state site, and now it's in full-blown town-operated thing. But you can go back and find our documents, our calls, minutes, everything. I believe we started in 98, September of 1998. And from then on, all of our documents are online. And I thank the good people of Channel 79, Don Conway, as I said, he's in the control room tonight. You can go back, and starting in September 2004, you can watch every RTM meeting. Not that you want to, but if there was something of historical interest that you wanted to research, it is available there. All right, and there's the next issue. I talked about the importance, Woody Allen said 90% of life is just showing up. Very important that you meet your meeting obligations. Although we recognize the beautiful thing about having 230 people is you have very active people who are not going to make every meeting, and that's understood. But not making every meeting and not making 50% of your meeting are 2 different things. And if you're not going to make a committee meeting, it is your responsibility to make sure that your alternate will be there. And if neither of you can make the meeting, you have to get in contact with your district chair, who then has the responsibility for making sure someone goes. And understand that we talked about you don't have to be a member of a committee to attend committee meetings. And it may happen that you sit in on a committee meeting and it turns out no one from your district is there. Well, guess what? You are now your district's representative and may vote, right? You don't need any advance notice. If there are 2 of you there, and that has happened, where they then start to fight over who's going to vote, let's hope that doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen. The district chair should, hopefully make sure if the alternate or delegate isn't there, someone should be designated. But understand that's how it works. If you happen upon that meeting and no one is there, you are now the district representative and may cast a vote for the district. We want the districts represented, and we want the information brought back so that, as I said, everything is disseminated and we have this advance notice. So to encourage attendance, if those of you who are new and you had to get a petition signed by 24 registered voters from your district, 25 registered voters from your district, you don't have to do that again if you meet 2/3 if you attend 2/3 of your district and full RTM meetings. Now, because the ballot has to be prepared in advance, that 2/3 measurement is made after the June meeting of the second calendar year. And so if there are no special meetings and no meetings canceled, that means you have to attend 9 of the 13 meetings to be able to get back on the ballot automatically. Automatically, the town clerk will send you a card. You just sign it and say, I authorize you to put my name back on. But that's the district and full committee meetings, 2/3 of each. We also have a rule for the first calendar year of committee meetings. If you are the voting delegate from your district, you must attend 50% of the committee meetings. And we ask the committee chairs to report after December if there's any delegate who did not meet that meeting. By RTM rule, you are now off the committee. But by RTM rule, your district may send you back. So that's how that works. I see I'm past my hour. I will say if you are invited to the December meeting, you will have the packet of information. You'll probably be sitting meeting where it's discussed. I hope you'll feel. And the reason to come to the December meeting is, where are we meeting? At the high school, the new auditorium. That's a one-time thing. That auditorium was for the students, but I did ask that we have an opportunity to meet. If there's a groundswell that we should storm the doors and go back there, we'll deal with it. I don't think that's going to happen, but yes.
What is the recommendation for the use of private while communicating with each other?
The town has in the past provided a town email for every member, and I will ask that information get disseminated. I don't know I once upon a time used it, but the ease of using it was not as easy as my AOL, so I just resorted to the AOL. But with Hillary and all, there are consequences if some issue arises, and then your private email. But the town will provide you with a town email to use, and many of our members do use that. Irv?
Back to the comment that you made with regard to encouraging those that are planning to run for either moderator or moderator pro tem. My recollection is that at least up until 2 years ago, at the meeting prior to the meeting in January, as long as it was pursuant to the rules, a recommendation could come from the floor that notification be given by those that...
No, we actually had it. We actually had a call item that was placed on the call in advance, and you were the one.
Well, that's why
who went around and got the signatures.
I don't know whether you fired me or not. That's why I'm asking.
Well, we just didn't talk about it. But
Right,
the call for the December meeting closes tomorrow at noon.
But can that still be done as long as it's done pursuant to the rules?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But the call closes tomorrow at noon.
Before you leave tonight, please sign. For those that are old timers, please feel free to sign a petition.
All right. So you are invited to that December meeting, and as I said, if you have any question before starting in January as to how the meetings you are expected to go, they are online. Steve? Val?
Yes, I just wanted to urge everybody to, well, sort of obvious, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Open your packets and read the call carefully, all the explanos, as soon as you can, call with questions. And also, keep up with what's going on with Greenwich. Subscribe to the Greenwich Time, the print edition, or there's a cheaper edition online. Also, there's the free, now new Greenwich Sentinel, so greenwichsentinel.com, which can come in your mailbox. There's Greenwich Post that comes online, and there's Greenwich Free Press. So, well, get them all.
No, that's great advice. Be informed about what's going on. And, as I said, in many respects, the RTM is a reactive body. Things are brought to us, and we make final decisions. But if you think something needs some attention, we do have the ability in certain respects to be proactive. Dean?
Is there any way to get that packet sent out a little earlier? Because oftentimes when I get it,
The packet being the call documents?
the call documents, because if you want to do your job right and go through it carefully, you sometimes don't have enough time to go through everything before the meetings.
Yeah. Well, to get it mailed out, we're at the mercy of town hall personnel. It's put together. It's got to be copied and all. But the online version should be available right away. And that has been available. There has been some delays with that, but there's no reason you can't access all of this online. It generally, as I said, what will happen for our December meeting? We have a deadline that, and you should know, how do items come before us? The town charter, the wording in the charter is that the moderator shall call a meeting upon a request from the first selectman or the BET chairman. And that's interpreted to mean that the moderator can put anything on the call, the first selectman can put anything on the call, and the BET chair can put anything on the call. Otherwise, to have a right to get something on the call and bring it before the RTM, it must be signed by a petition of 20 registered voters in town. Now, I have taken the position that if any of our committees or districts want something on the call and they have a majority vote to do so, it'll come on through my authority. The town departments come through the authority of the first selectman or the BET chair. So that's how. And then I said a petition of 20. That's how citizens can get something before us. And there's no discretion. If there's a petition of 20 voters, no matter what it says, it comes before us. That doesn't mean, we can't decide not to act on it. There are all sorts of parliamentary devices available to us. But what will happen is whatever's coming before us is due in the clerk's office 3.5 weeks prior to our meeting, that being noon on the Friday, 3.5 weeks. And then the call is put together early in the following week, Monday and Tuesday, and I make the referrals to the committees, and the documents then are finalized and copied. And at that point, before they're copied, they should be online. So the online version should be available well in advance of your receiving your packet in the mail. And as I said, there are 2 RTM websites. The clerk's office has direct access to one of them, the second one that I mentioned here, rtm.greenwich.org. The IT department in town hall has access to the other one. And so it's not simultaneous that the call will go up on each. It should be up first on that rtm.greenwich.org. Yes?
Just so that our new members know how important their vote is, didn't MISA pass by 1 vote?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
No? How many votes?
No, there are a lot of legends about things passing by 1 vote on the RTM, and they're usually not true, other than Joan Caldwell's election that one year. But I've heard that the RTM approved the purchase of Todd's Point by 1 vote. Not even close. There was 1 vote against it. That it was unanimous for it. But MISA, there were several votes on MISA. We had a controversy in 2008 for architectural funds. That was a big vote then. Then there was the first big appropriation for the building, and that was overwhelming. And as they kept coming back, the vote got closer and closer. But I don't think it ever got down to 1. It may have been 10 or 15, the final vote, but not 1. And, to me, I have down here parliamentary things, and I copied something out of our appendix. That's the last page. That really is unimportant. The bottom line in running meetings is use common sense, be fair. Yes, there are rules. There's the full Roberts rules, but we shouldn't be needing that. We resort to that when trouble breaks out, and we don't need to worry about that because everybody is respectful. As I said, we want to hear full discussion. We want to hear opposing opinions, but we must respect opposing opinions, and that's the key. Sometimes, we're so passionate about something seems so personal to us that we begin these personal attacks, and that cannot happen. But that's really all I want to say about parliamentary procedure. Everything else should work out. Steve?
Just two quick things, Mr. Moderator. I ran down and made more copies of the handout, so if anybody did not get
I'm sorry. I had more here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'm sorry.
And then if anybody hasn't signed in, we still have the sign-in sheets. And what is the date of the January RTM meeting?
The 19th.
The 19th.
It's
Thank you very much,
the third Tuesday.
sir.
It'll be the day after Martin Luther King holiday.
Thank you.
Which is why it's Tuesday. All right, one final thing. If you have not been in touch with your district chair, I put their contact information down there. I strongly recommend you get in touch with them, let them know what you're interested in, and seek out any advice they might have. Any final questions you might have?
What was the date of the January 19th?
19th.
19th. I just wanted to remind people that will be written properly in the resolution, which I would ask everybody to sign unless they're moving.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Listen, I thank you all for coming out. Congratulations. Congratulations on your election. Look forward to working with you.